video, I'm going to be exploring a bit of code that I wrote for my personal portfolio. I wrote it using a Flask, which is a micro framework, I think, micro web framework, where it's modular, and you can, and as your website grows and evolves, the framework also changes. So I'm going to go through the application.python file, and I'm going to discuss what I've done. It's a very, very simple program. It's 178 lines of code. So it's very small, but there's a lot of decisions that I've made in doing it to in order to get my website how I really wanted it. So I'm going to start by running the server, running the built-in development server, and show you what it looks like. So it's very simple. It consists of an index page, a journal overview page, and then a journal article that you can select from that page. It sort of looks a little bit like a CV actually, and that was intentional. It's not super flashy or lots to show, and that's because I want this to be like a home for my future projects that I discuss and write about, and I want them to be there's a saying, the meat and chips of the website, I think. So you can see we have a little bit of information about me. We have some of my education, my experience, and my competencies, and there's bound to be spelling mistakes, I'm sure of it, because I haven't actually proofread it yet, but I've got it working. So I've pushed it. It's currently live, but there will be a lot more changes that I make over the next week or two, just getting it polished and ready for me to then start producing journal articles or content in that format. So if we go to the journal page, for this demonstration, I have issue 1 and issue 2. I just copied issue 1 and just renamed it to issue 2 and put it in a random subfolder, just to show you how it can work and how it's a dynamic website. And you can go ahead and you can click on it and you can actually read the markdown file. So this could be done purely statically. You could use something like GitHub Pages, and you could push markdown files, I think, to GitHub Pages. But this method, by using a back-end framework like Flask, what it allows me to do is actually grow this web app that I've made, and I can actually create some new features. I haven't really got any ideas. I have one that I'm not sure if I'll implement or not, and that's just so that I can password protect or somehow secure articles that I haven't finished before releasing them, and that's something you can do with a back-end framework, which is what I want to do. But you'll actually see as we go through the code that there's a pretty big flaw, I think, in how I've set it up. So it's going to take me a bit of work, but we'll start. So starting at the very top, this is where I import all of my libraries and modules that I use. So you can see we have Flask, we have Blueprint, we have Render Template, we had Send from Directory, which we don't have anymore because I changed how I was using 2 static folders. We have the Markdown library, pathlib, markup safe, datetime, and regular expressions. And I'll go into why that's needed later. We first create an instance of the we create an instance of the Flask class. It's a bit hard to say, and I've called it app. This is our main application, and this is what we refer to when we're creating our routes, when we're doing any sort of configuration for the web server, and so on. I also then create this variable date on startup, which just gets today's date, and it formats it. It uses this %c, which you can look at the docs yourself. There's a whole table that have the different. I don't remember what they're called. I think I wrote it down. Maybe not. It started with the D, but it's the %C, and it's how it formats that date. And so this just puts it in some sort of local format where you've got the time, the date, and that's good for me. And that shows when the web server was last restarted, and I'm only needing to or updated. It's not a true update because it could restart without having any changes being made. But this date and time will display at the bottom, and it will be different. I also create this list of articles. So what we're doing is we create. Sorry, it's a dictionary. It uses the folder name as the key, and we look inside that folder. This is our for loop here. So we loop through our content folder, which is where I store my articles that I write or my journal posts. And if it is a directory, then we take the name of that directory and we look inside that directory, and we store that as the name, as the key, and the values as an array of the names of the journal articles or the articles that I've written. So you've got a key which represents an array of articles, and then I create a blueprint for my content folder. And the reason I've done this is because I'm serving static files. I'm serving static markdown files I'm just thinking I might have a better way of doing this. I don't know if I actually need to serve the markdown file. I'm serving images within the content folder, so it's not just markdown files actually. So in the Flask docs you can register a blueprint, and that's another way you can serve a static folder, because at the moment Flask uses the built-in static folder to serve CSS files, and I think there's a favicon, and the image that I use for my portfolio sort of hero thing, and then we register that blueprint. So moving on here, we do also define a function, a context, a context processor, and all that's doing is when I'm rendering templates, I'm passing in context, I'm passing in dynamic data, and in this case, I want to be able to pass the date to the base template, and I don't want to have to do that through every extension of that template. So what I've just done is made date accessible to all templates by defining this context processor, and that therefore means I can access this data in the base template without actually ever rendering that template explicitly. As we move on, we have our index route. This is your landing page. It's just index.html, very simple. And I have this journal URL as well that users can visit. This renders the journal index .html file, which is a Ninja 2 template, and I pass in the name of the articles for processing and displaying as clickable links, so that users can see what files exist or what articles exist for them to read, and then they can go and click on them and read them. As we move down, I also have this journal route, which takes the format of the name of the folder or the category of the article, which could be newsletter, it could be, I think I've got professional development in there as one of them. Some things that I've been writing about and I'm polishing for my website, for my portfolio. And we have the article title as well. So that is the second part of the URL. As we come in here, we create this article URL. So we build a URL that we can actually check to make sure the file exists on our operating system. So we prepend it with context. We make sure that I use the escape function here to make sure that there's no sort of injected code that's going to try and get run when I'm checking if this path is a valid path on my server. Whether or not the path function actually has some sort of protection, I'm not sure. I haven't read that far into the documentation. It might do, so that escape function on both the article folder and the article title might be redundant, but it's good to have just in case. If the markdown file doesn't exist, or the content that I've written doesn't exist, it's just going to return a 404 error. And if it does, then we want to read the text within that markdown file, because we need to convert that markdown file text to HTML so we can display it to the user. As we move on, we have our I have this function that I called fix image paths, and the reason I have that is because when I am writing my markdown files, I'm writing it with image paths that are relative to where the markdown file currently is. And so in my markdown editor, it displays the images correctly, but then if I want to display this, but that path is going to be different, the path to the source image is going to be different from my markdown editor, where my markdown file is located, compared to where my my server is trying to find those images. So we have to fix those image paths. So what that does is it comes down to this function here, and I have defined this regular expression pattern, which looks for the alternative name for the picture with this exclamation mark, and then you've got your open square brackets, and then in round brackets you've got the actual path of the image, which is what I want to extract. So once I've extracted that, once I've extracted the matches, so how many images within that markdown folder match that regular expression, then I loop through it and I create a path fix. I've called that fix path, which just appends context, the name of the article folder, and the matches. And you'll notice that I'm accessing the second element of the array because the matches is not just the image path, but it's this. It's found a match. If it loops through a markdown file and it finds a match for your alternative name, this is your first or your zero index in your matches array. So you have to make sure you're only replacing this part of the array with your fixed path, which appends this context path to the image location, I suppose, so it actually can render properly. This print statement's actually it's not needed. It's never seen by the user, but it was helpful for me for debugging. And then what I do is I replace the matches where there are image sources or image paths with the fixed path that I've created, and then that gets sent back to our journal route here, where we have our new markdown text. It's just the same variable name, but after the image paths have been fixed, and then that uses the markdown library that I imported to convert that from a markdown language to HTML, and then that's rendered to the user using and that HTML is actually passed in as the context converted markdown text. So if I look at the journal template, you can see here where I am rendering and displaying this markdown, or this markdown that's been converted to HTML, and that now presents itself as an article, a journal article to the user. So this has been just a really quick video just talking about my application.python script, and although it's really small, there are a lot of programming decisions that have been made to get to the stage where I'm pretty happy with how my how the like foundation or the framework for my site is, and there's a lot of room, especially by using something like Flask as a modular framework for developing front and back end for websites. Well, you don't use it for the front end, but for the back end for web applications. There's a lot of room to add some really cool features, and it's just this sort of an endless amount of possibilities, which I think is really cool. One thing I did want to say as well before I finished up is that you can, if you're like if you're watching this and you're wanting to get into programming and you're not really too sure, I know a lot of large language models can just do it really, really easily and really, really well. And my problem with that is that you lose the sort of, you're kind of cheating yourself a little bit. You're kind of taking away from what you could have learnt by actually programming it yourself. So I don't know if you've seen these ads as well, but I see them all the time for base 44, and it's and their sort of whole novelty is that now anybody can build an application, but that in itself takes away from the sort of it takes away from the like specialness of actually building something yourself, even if it's really simple. I mean, this took me how many days? It took me 3 days, I think, of not full work, but 5, 10, 15 hours of work maybe. And that might be quite slow. I'm not a software developer by trade. I'm an engineer. And so I haven't focused purely on software, but for me, being an engineer means being able to sort of solve problems and really try and understand things at a fundamental level. And I think that's really important, a really important thing for anybody. So use these tools, but don't, if it's something you're passionate about, there's always going to be jobs for developers. I don't think they're going to take over completely, and I don't think they're going to be a substitution, because they get things wrong all of the time, and you lose that sort of human element that you would otherwise have when you're creating a piece of software yourself, and the control that you have over that as well. So if you've enjoyed this sort of code review and you'd like to see something similar in the future, I'll probably do some more videos like this, just reviewing some bits of code that I've written, explaining how they work. Feel free to try and break this website. My only rules would be don't do anything that's just damaging. Don't do anything, if you manage to break it really badly, because I don't know what you can and can't sort of inject or break or whatever. I haven't tested it that far yet, but it's an opportunity to practice something. And before I go, if you have any code yourself that you want me to review, I can do sort of like a critical review. I think that'd be really interesting. So if that's something you'd like to see, feel free to just send me an email. If you send me zip files through email, I'm not going to open them, so don't bother. I'm just going to delete the email. If you want to contact me, LinkedIn's another really good way of getting to me. And if you've got some code, send me a GitHub link or something like that, so I can actually review it without the risk of sort of viruses or whatever being installed on my computer from you sending through dodgy code, I suppose. So if you've enjoyed this sort of style of video, it's a little bit more like free-flowing. I don't have a script for this. I have notes on my computer where I've actually just commented in the code, and I understand the program well enough to be able to talk about it, I think. If you have any feedback for me, please let me know, and we'll see you next time.